Hello again, fight fans. Welcome to episode number 219 of the Neutral Corner Boxing Podcast. I am your host, Michael Montero, and today we'll be joined by very, very special guest, sports commentator Todd Grisham. This guy, of course, right now, you guys know him for calling fights on DAZN, but he was with ESPN back in the day on Friday Night Fights. He's worked in wrestling, WWE, MMA, boxing, kickboxing, all over the place. So that's going to be awesome to talk with him. But he'll join us in probably about 15 minutes. Before I get into that, I just wanted to cover a few things. And, of course, we'll have your guys' questions, and you can call in. The phone lines are open. We have a local number here in the US of A and a local number in the UK. Give us a little bit of time, though, because we will have our guest on the show, like I said, in about 15 minutes. Excited to have Todd on. He's a pretty damn cool guy, and I love the way he goes about his work because he doesn't do the announcer guy voice. Todd Grisham, his voice, it's always the same. Like the way he calls fights and everything, it's the way he talks in real life. So he really puts a lot of himself into his broadcasting and everything, and I really enjoy that. I'm also really interested to talk to him about the differences between UFC, kickboxing, boxing, wrestling, all that stuff, because he's worked all over the place. But a couple things. Okay, before I get started, guys, I want to put you on to something from Contenders Clothing. I've talked about Contenders Clothing before. You guys know I don't do sponsorships here on the show, on the channel. I have ads here on YouTube. By the way, some of you guys have complained about the ads. Look, I don't pick the ads, and I don't pick how many ads there are. That is 100% up to Google. And I know sometimes Google bombards the freaking videos with ads. I apologize, everyone. I have zero control over that. Honestly, I do. Zero control. Just click the skip ad button. I know it's a pain in the ass, but just click that button. If it really drives you that nuts, just wait and listen to the audio version of the show on Apple Podcast or Spotify, wherever it is, okay? It's that simple. Anyway, back to Contenders Clothing. I don't plug a lot of stuff on the show unless I believe in it. And last time I was in Los Angeles, Contenders Clothing, it's a clothing company. I think they're originally out of Vegas, LA. Now they're in LA, California. And last time I was out there in LA covering Spence Porter at Staples, they put on an event there, a little media dinner. They work with a lot of fighters, and they were sponsoring John Molina. And John Molina and his family were there. There was a lot of boxing media royalty, a lot of fighters. It was an awesome event, and they invited Tiffany and I. I got to meet those guys. They reached out to me, which I thought was really, really awesome. And when I got to know them a little bit, I saw that they're legit. They work with fighters, and they're doing a thing right now where the proceeds from the sales of this shirt that I'm wearing, let me see if I can get this on camera here. This shirt says, remember in the movie Rocky, he says, all I want to do is go the distance with Creed, right? This says going the distance, but there's the word social over it, going the social distance. This is an awesome tee. They got a couple of these dark gray, light gray. And guys, the proceeds from these shirts, they are giving to fighters in need who are affected by the COVID-19 crisis, the quarantine situation. You guys know the superstar fighters, it's really not affecting their livelihood much because they're fine. They're multimillionaires. And guys like Gary Russell, he only fights once a year anyway. So this ain't bothering him one iota. But the young guys, the guys just starting out, all those guys really, really can use help because if you don't fight, you don't get paid. And let me just read this right off Contender's site. Proceeds from this shirt go directly to professional fighters affected by the COVID-19 crisis. Any fighter can sign up right now for direct payment sent out the first week of May. So these guys will send money straight to the fighter. No bullshit, no skimming off the top. All the proceeds going right to the fighters. All proceeds from the Go to Social Distance fundraiser t-shirt and 10% off sales at contendersclothing.com go to the fund. I also want to give you guys a discount code when you go check them out. Don't quit when you check out for whatever you buy there. When you go to checkout, type in the words "Don't Quit." No spaces, DONTQUIT, and you'll get a discount. I think it's 10%. It might actually be 25%. But anyway, guys, again, I don't plug a lot of stuff on the show. But you guys know the stuff that I have plugged, it's legit. It's from real boxing people doing stuff that's passionate, that matters, that's really, really helping and affecting lives in the sport. not just people giving me shit, okay? So I want to make sure you guys check them out, because how freaking cool is that they're helping fighters? We see a lot of people talking about doing the right thing, but how many people are actually stepping up and doing it? So this is pretty damn cool. Make sure you guys check them out. Now, I want to talk about YouTube real quick, and then our guest will be on. If he's not ready after this, then we'll go to a couple questions, because I got some stuff from Facebook and Twitter from a few of you guys. But YouTube. Okay, so I talked about the ads. By the way, Super Chat pledge, speaking of YouTube, from Soap Boxing Podcast. Thank you very, very much for the Super Chat. I appreciate that. He says, I have Claressa Shields Friday, 6:30 p.m. Central Time. That's awesome, bro. All right, guys, so check out Soap Boxing Podcast. He has Claressa Shields on his show this Friday, 6:30 Central Time, obviously 7:30 Eastern Time, 4:30 Pacific Time. Make sure you guys check him out. That's great, man. That's great. Awesome. Good for you, bro. Okay, YouTube ads. I talked about that, guys. I have no control over it, so sorry. But another thing I don't have any control over that's driving me nuts is the changes that YouTube has made in the algorithm. And it's making me consider taking this show and my whole profile off of YouTube and just building my own website and doing everything independently off my site. That would be a massive project on a massive scale. That would take a lot of money and time and energy, so I'm not there yet. But I'm starting to consider it, because one thing I've noticed with YouTube, who of course is owned by Google, they're changing the algorithms and hooking up their buddies in the corporate world more and more and more. And you guys have seen it. It's a nonpartisan thing, but if you look at CNN, Fox News, Disney, ESPN, across the board, Comedy Central, TBS, whoever has a YouTube channel, they've all really, really skyrocketed in terms of their numbers, their subscriberships, because YouTube has bumped all of them up, because they're hooking each other up behind closed doors. That's how this shit always happens. It's people at the very top just hooking each other up. That's the way this shit always goes. I hate it, because YouTube used to be something that was truly, truly for the people. And it was an awesome tool for regular people to get their voice out there. And that still exists. You can still get your voice out there. But guys, I logged in through VPN and just searched my name in boxing. And I'm way down the list. Now, here's what's crazy. I did that same experiment. I do it like once a year. But I remember doing that like 3 years ago when my platform was half as big as it is now. And I was on the first page at the top. If you typed in Michael Montero boxing, boom, I was right there, because how many guys have my name and do boxing stuff? Now, you type in Michael Montero boxing, there's a bunch of ESPN shit with Teddy Atlas. There's Mike Tyson's Smoked Out podcast. There's all this Glovegate bullshit from these whack job teenagers who don't even like boxing. There's all this shit. And then you get down to me. And I'm not, now, I can hear some of you right now going, oh, all Montero does is talk about himself. Shut up and give me 5 minutes. Because this is an issue. This is a big issue. It's something that I've talked about with a few of you guys, and a few of you have reached out to me that have channels like my size. Apparently, the algorithm changes at 10,000 subs. And I noticed I hit 8,000 last year, like maybe 6-7 months ago, and it's just stalled at 8,000. It's just stalled there. So YouTube's definitely changing things, and some of you guys are subscribed, then a week later you're unsubscribed. So I think somehow I'm on a list that's getting shadow banned, which is happening to a lot of people. I only bring this up, guys, because I ask you I bring it up every week, but I'm really, really asking you to make sure you are subscribed and you click the damn notifications bell. Not only that, but it goes a hell of a long way if you get the word out and you tell your boxing bros, your boxing girls about the show. All right? So tweet it out there, blast it out there. And that's what helps. That's what helps get the word out, get those subs up, and maybe someday we can compete with the corporate overlords. But right now, it's very, very clear what YouTube and Google are doing. They're trying to bump up all the big corporate channels, and they're pushing down the independent operators like me. Isn't that the way it always goes, man? The little guy always get screwed over. But so yeah, just remember that, everybody. Make sure that you are subscribed, and make sure that you're sharing the videos and sharing the channel and getting the word out there. All right, let me see. Is Todd on yet? Todd is not on yet. So let me go to let me go to a quick question. I got a few questions here, again, from Facebook, from Twitter. And, a few of you guys have asked me about the YouTube thing, about some of you guys are just getting started with your channels. It's going to take you a long time to build up the subscribers. You just have to keep posting material. Guys, you have to realize that, and I'm sure it's like this with every subject. It's not just boxing, but if you go back to the beginning of YouTube, I think YouTube's been around for like 15 years or something. I know it's been at least 10 years. There were a few channels that started like 10, 11 years ago on YouTube. And those were the original channels. The few of those guys that stuck around, they've become the few channels that have like 100,000 or more subscribers. The only other way you can get up to that is if you buy a bunch of subscribers. There are services. You guys have seen them. You can buy followers on Twitter, on Instagram, subscribers on YouTube, and basically fake your way, fake it till you make it, as they say. I'm not going to do that shit. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to buy YouTube subscribers. I don't buy my Twitter followers or Instagram followers. I'm just not going to do that shit. You guys know the people that are out there doing it because you see some of these channels that have 10,000, 20,000 subs and their videos do 400 views or whatever it is. So you know who's doing it. I'm not going to be that guy. The way I look at it, I do get some ad revenue from YouTube, but guys, it's pennies on a dollar. 98% of the ad revenue, which by the way, I don't choose what ads they use or how many they do or where they put them, but I get maybe 2 cents off the dollar that they make. YouTube gets the rest. They take that shit. I've made YouTube thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. The last thing I'm going to do is spend thousands more buying subscribers. That's fucking nuts. So again, I ask you, make sure that you're subscribed and get the word out, okay? But if you guys are just starting out, the only advice I can give you, just keep posting videos, okay? The original 5 channels or so, those are always going to be the big ones. Those super, super duper big ones. And it's going to be very difficult for anyone to catch up to that unless you do the race baiting, the clickbaiting, Glovegate, all that kind of stuff. And you guys know what channels do that. And a few of them, it's worked out for them. Other than that, you're going to be somewhere in the middle, okay? So just keep posting material and do it the right way. And your channel will grow, all right? Now, once you get close to 10,000, YouTube and Google will do everything they can to keep you under 10,000 because once you hit 10,000, you're in another stratosphere. It changes the algorithm, and YouTube wants to keep a little bit more of their money. They keep a little bit less once you hit that number, so they will work extra hard to keep you down, unless you're with Disney or something and you're paying them under the table. Then your shit just boosts up artificially. All right, I'll stop ranting about YouTube. Let's get to a question here. Nigel Hins on the old Twitter. He asks, do you think the WBC has damaged their credibility with the whole emailing the lightweight title to Devin Haney twice? Yeah, I do. But this isn't the first time the WBC has pulled some shit like this. So good question, Nigel. I mean, I've been talking about this the last few episodes, really. But yeah, man, they this is just what they do, man. They've done this multiple times, and I think they're going to continue doing it. I think you're going to see more of these titles in recess, or what do they do now? The Diamond title. They did the title, dude. They had a belt for the Mayweather-McGregor fight. They're going to get in anywhere they can. Now, McGregor obviously was a sports superstar, and Mayweather was a boxing champion, a great Hall of Fame level fighter. So I kind of understand that. The situation with Devin Haney at lightweight was especially egregious and screwed up. And to reinstate him as champion during the COVID pandemic, a global pandemic where there's a quarantine ordered and there's no boxing happening, it's just so idiotic because when boxing was here, you screwed over a complete lightweight unification to email a prospect a title, a prospect, not a contender, a prospect. And then you elevated Lomachenko to franchise champion. And of course, people will use that as an agenda, with their agenda and say, oh, Lomachenko ducking Haney. Meanwhile, he's fighting Teofimo Lopez, who's far more proven. If Teofimo Lopez and Devin Haney fought right now, I would favor Lopez. Now, 5 years from now, I would favor Haney. But right now, I'd favor Lopez. And that's who Lomachenko's fighting right now. But he ducking Haney. So the WBC just gave those people fuel for their fire. Then he's injured and has to get surgery. So you say, okay, we're going to do a vacant title. And I think they had Luke Campbell versus, I can't remember who was supposed to fight for the vacant title. And then during this global pandemic quarantine, he's rested, he's feeling good. So you email him the title again and reinstate him as champion. What the fuck? Talk about mishandling something. The WBC is actually not the worst. The WBA is by far the worst. But that is a situation that they royally screwed up. And I don't know how you justify defending Devin Haney right now. Look, fighters love titles. So, I understand what he's doing, but I don't understand how you could defend the WBC and what they did with the whole Lomachenko thing and the franchise champion. It's just ridiculous. It's a bad look, but maybe there's some sneaky genius to them reinstating Haney as champion now because everything's on pause. Everything's on break. So when boxing does come back, he's champion, and the 24-hour news cycle will have run over 100 times by then anyway. So it'll be yesterday's news. Anyway, let's jump over to the guest hotline and get our guest on the phone here. I think he's on the line. Let's see here. Mr. Todd Grisham of DAZN. Are you there, sir?
I am, Michael. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, my man. Can you hear me good?
How do I sound? Yeah, do I sound okay?
You sound good, man. You sound good. If we have any audio issues, the live listeners will let me know. It has happened a few times because I'm a moron when it comes to technology. So if the audio is bad, they will let me know pretty soon. So it looks like we're good to go. So let's start with the cliche question. I know you've been doing a lot of podcasts right now recently, man, but I know the first question is always the same. The COVID thing, the quarantine life, how is that affecting you? Because you're in Alabama, right? And I know different states have kind of different levels of quarantine and stuff. Where is Alabama at, and how has all this affected you guys?
I'm actually in Connecticut, believe it or not. I have a house here in Connecticut right near ESPN where I used to work. So right now I'm in Connecticut.
Sense.
My 3 kids bounce back between me and my ex-wife who's just down the road from me. So it's been okay. It just sucks. The weather's so bad here. I wish I was in Alabama right now. It'd be beautiful. We'd be swimming. But, today it's like 35, 38 degrees outside right now with 3 little kids. You can't go to the park. You can't do anything. So you sit here and scream and yell at each other all day and then go to bed.
Good times. Okay, well, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, I saw the Connecticut area code when you called, and then I know you were at Bristol for a while, and that's the question I was going to ask you. I imagine you moved up there when you got the gig with ESPN in 2011, right?
Correct. Well, I was in Connecticut working for WWE, which is in Stamford, Connecticut.
Okay.
And then ended up making my way up a little more northern in the state, and that's where I am right now. So trust me, Connecticut is not my ideal destination for like a vacation or anything, but it has its pluses and minuses. And one of the minuses is the winter and bad weather seem to go on for eternity.
Yeah, dude, tell me about it. I grew up in Michigan. I'm from Detroit. So, yeah, I know what you're talking about. You're basically in Canada. Once you get north of New York, even upstate New York, that's just Canada. So, yeah, where you guys are at right now. Actually, it was pretty cold here yesterday, but in the 30s, fuck that. I'm not dealing with that shit no more.
Well, people think, people are like, North Dakota's so cold and all those places, Minnesota. I said, man, look where we are on the horizon with these guys. We're just as north as they are. You don't think it's that cold, but man, it's freezing up here. So
how close are you to the water?
It's not that close, right in the middle of the state.
Okay,
to get to the ocean or to the Long Island Sound, it's I guess like an hour and 15 minutes. But I will say this: it's great to be with family and stuff. Physically, I'm doing great. Mentally, though, like most people in the boxing profession right now, no fights means no money. So right now, everyone's just kind of, like we do in Alabama, duct tape and chicken wire just to get on down the road a little bit till this thing gets back on track.
I hear you, man. I hear you. Yeah, I mean, for me, like on the news side of things, there's no fucking news, so there's like nothing to talk about. I'm trying to keep it creative on my show. They're trying to get articles out there for Ring Magazine, for the website. There's just not a whole lot going on. But let's see. I want to talk about a few different things with you. So you just talked about no fights, no money. I think a lot of people are curious about how, like, a guy like you, who obviously you have a contract with DAZN, how that works out, like financially. Do you get paid salary, or is it literally per gig where you get like a per diem? Or does it depend on the contract, I guess?
It's all different for contract. I mean, every contract's different. It's just like ESPN. If, when Dan Patrick was there, if Dan Patrick called a football game, it's probably part of his contract. But if they bring in, a guy that just calls Pac-12 games on Saturdays, he probably gets whatever it is, $5-6 grand a game to go call the game and be done with it. So as long as he's calling games, he's doing fine. And in the big scheme of things, sometimes you can make more money doing it that way. But obviously you lose some of the job security, which a lot of people would love to have right now.
Yeah, you're so right, man. And it's really like the same thing with Ring and with us guys in the media, because people ask that all the time. Like, okay, I was with Boxing Monthly, we're phasing out. Actually, this month is our last month there. And I've been with Ring now for a couple of years. And people ask me, are you salary? How do you get paid? How does it work? It's literally per contract most of the time. And so when there's nothing to report about, it hurts. It hurts everybody.
Right.
It's hurting the fighters. It's hurting, like, there's that 1% at the top that has those great, sweet deals, or you got like that awesome contract where you're just getting a salary every other week or whatever. But for the other 99% of us, yeah, man, you're just trying to hustle, just a nickel here and a nickel there. It's just how it is.
Yeah. It's just how boxers are. Triple G has a massive contract with DAZN, but if he doesn't fight, he doesn't get any money. They're not just paying him money because he's with DAZN. He's got to fight those fights.
Right.
So, and that, even more so for these, guys that are just coming along the way. These guys that are 23, 24 years old who have 10 to 15 fights. I mean, some of these guys are fighting for literally hundreds of dollars per fight.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys. I think a lot of fans have a misconception. I mean, the overwhelming majority of fighters are fighting for peanuts. And a lot of these guys have full-time jobs. And boxing is something they do on the side. A lot of these guys. It's the same thing with fight media, too, including guys that, like, colleagues of yours, colleagues of mine that are, like, quote-unquote A-lister people. A lot of these guys have side gigs because,
right.
The money in boxing, it's really, really good when you're at the very, very top, but under that, you're kind of fighting, I want to talk a little bit about, something I'm curious about with you, man, because I was talking about this at the top of the show when I said you were going to be on. One of the things I like about you and your delivery is the way you call fights and the way you describe everything, the action happening, is the way you talk in real life. You don't put on the announcer guy voice, because there's a lot of guys out there that put on that voice. But you do project. I'm just curious because you actually studied communications in school, right? So you knew you wanted to go into this field. Is your voice something that you worked on? Is it something you always had? Did you take any specific classes or training for that kind of stuff?
Well, it's interesting. A lot of people say I sound like Kermit the Frog. So I'm glad. Thank you for the compliment, Michael, that you like my voice. But some people hate my voice, and then I'll get people that will say, man, you have the perfect announcer voice. So who knows? But when I was a kid, all I wanted to do was be a DJ. And when I mean DJ, I'm talking about our old school DJs like Wolfman Jack and Kid Kelly and all these guys, Casey Kasem. I wanted to be on the radio talking. Kasem. So I bought this book. Exactly. Here's your long distance request and dedication. So I would wake up every morning because I bought this book. It was called On the Air. On the Air. I don't know why I remember that, but it was just how to be a DJ. And the book at the time was even 10 years old. But it had these throat exercises to deepen your voice. So it said first thing in the morning when you wake up, before you utter a word, you should just go, and hold it as long as you can, like 20 times. So literally, I'm 8 years old in my room before I would go to school every day. Sound like I'm doing spiritual yoga or meditation. My mom was like, what is this
Some
kid
kind
doing?
Of pagan ritual.
But I was trying to deepen my voice. And I remember when I got started at WWE, my voice was still a lot higher than it is now. And I went to my boss at the time and said, hey, I'm ready to call Monday Night Raw. Give me the keys, man. I want the big show. And he goes, listen to how you sound. He goes, you need to start smoking cigarettes or something to get your voice lower. That was the thing. I had such a high-pitched voice. So, and it everything amplifies, too. When the louder or more emotional you get in a fight, I mean, you've heard it across the spectrum. Some of the great calls of all time, the guy just loses his voice because he's screaming so loud and so out of his mind.
Right.
So, but what I do before every show is I do a couple voice exercises to loosen my throat. And when I talk, I try and talk from my stomach, which prevents you from, straining your vocal cords. When I'm doing kickboxing, some nights I'm calling 14 fights in a row. So I try and give as much energy to the first guy as I do the last guy. So when there's people talk about fighters not being able to step up without fans in the audience. They don't want to fight in empty stadiums. I'm like, man, try going out there and giving it energy when you're sitting at the Staples Center and there's literally 30 people in the crowd.
Yeah.
I called it a Dillian White fight, believe it or not. I think it was it may have been in Omaha on the Bud Crawford's card. He was super, like one of the first or second fights out of the gate, whatever it was, just trying to stay busy fight. There was no one there, but I was trying to give him the same energy that I give for the main event.
Yeah, I've called a couple of live cards myself, just club level shows for the most part, mostly in California, but a couple on the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of moving parts to that gig that I think people don't realize. There's somebody talking in your ear. There's a few guys next to you ringside pointing and pulling and, getting you in different directions. So the energy that you guys got to have, I mean, especially like on DAZN, you guys are calling a ton of fights, right? Those are stacked cards,
right?
And you're broadcasting the whole show. So the energy it takes, it's a lot. And it's definitely harder than it looks. What are some of the misconceptions that you think a lot of fans have? Because you guys get bashed. Commentators get bashed a lot by fight fans. If you stutter one time, it can become a meme on Twitter. And people are like, oh, this guy sucks. What are some of the misconceptions that you think fans have?
Well, I mean, if you look at the big scheme of things right now, I don't care who you say, whether it's Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, Cindy Crawford, you tell me any human being on the planet, Jesus Christ, Muhammad, whatever, there's going to be a section of society that hates them and thinks they are ugly or terrible at their job or just a bad person. So that's just the way it is in the Twitter sphere. I mean, Joe Buck is an amazing, amazing announcer. Bob Costas, probably the best ever. But there's probably 20 to 25% of sports fans who think these people should be drug out on a field and shot dead. I mean, that's just the way it is. So I try and look past that. I mean, that's most of the time people that criticize you, I don't want to say they're jealous of you. Of course, they're jealous of the job you have, but they think they can do it better. So anytime someone comes at me that way and like, oh, I'd be so much better than you. I'm like, okay, next show, hit your iPhone, hit the record button, start when I start, and call the 6-hour show, the 8 fights or whatever it is, and then send it to me. And we'll put it up against mine, and we'll post it, and we'll see who did a better job. And no one's ever taken me up on the offer.
Of course
because
not.
It's so hard to do.
Of course.
And it's not just anybody can stand there and say, right hand, he threw a left hand, he punched him in the stomach. But what is that doing? That's nothing. To call the fight and to try and tell these guys stories and not say the wrong word or the wrong phrasing and to ask the right questions and to be funny and to get all the nuts and bolts done. DAZN needs you to sell this copy and to promote this show and to bring this guy in here and you're directing traffic. There's so many things that go on besides me just sitting there watching a fight with my buddy. But if you're good at your job, people at home, that's what they feel like. I want people to feel like they're sitting right next to me and Sergio. We're having beers. We're watching the fights and we're talking about it.
Yeah, and that's definitely the vibe you give off. That's why I'm a fan of yours, man. I like, again, I feel like the way you call a fight is the way you're talking to me right now. And that's something that I always try to do whenever I'm doing a radio spot or whatever it is, hosting a show or whatever. I try to talk to people the way I talk to people. It's the same way I do a show. And you just talked about, a 6-hour broadcast or whatever on fight night, but that doesn't take into account fight week. and you guys are traveling.
Right.
You know, if you're in Bristol, then shit, man, you're flying all over the country because there's not a lot of action in Bristol, or that area, I should say.
Right.
So can you just briefly describe, again, because I think a lot of people have misconceptions, just a fight week schedule for you, for Todd Grisham? There's a fight in Dallas this Saturday. What would your schedule be like?
Well, if it's boxing, most likely I'd probably fly in Thursday morning early. Get there, we probably have a...
Uh-oh. Shit, we lost Todd. Okay, hang on one second. I'll call him back. I've actually never called someone from my line here on the show, so let's see if this works. Damn. Operator error. Todd hung up on himself. So let me message him, guys.
Call has been forwarded to an automated voice messaging system.
Okay.
2 0 3 4 3 4.
Ignore everything I just heard. All right. Whew. I'm glad that whole number didn't come out. I'd have to delete the show. Okay, there's Todd again. All right. Todd, what's up,
Hey,
man?
sorry about that. I'm there. Yeah,
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Dude, I called you back, and the voicemail picked up, and it's so the first three or four numbers of your number just blurted out. I will have to edit that out. But okay. Anyway, I don't even know where the hell were we?
Michael. To be honest, Michael, I don't have a lot of friends. I'd probably appreciate the phone calls and text. Just throw it out to the world.
Yeah.
Say he's got 3 kids under the age of 9. Entertain him, please.
All right, cool. Yeah, there you go, guys. Just blow up Todd's phone and harass his kids. No, you were talking about.
I'm worried about Sergio, by the way. Sergio Moore is the guy I'm worried about. He's texting me every day. He's like, bro, I think I'm going insane, literally clinically insane. I can't stand it. He's got 2 young kids.
Oh, man.
I'm worried about the guy, man.
Dude,
he's got a great show on DAZN called Jabs with him and Chris Mannix. But if he didn't have that, he'd be at the loony bin right now.
Where do they shoot that show? Do they shoot that in L.A.?
No, they shoot it from their houses right now. It's kind of like a interruption where Sergio's at. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, man. Why don't you do more? Why don't you have guests call in on Skype? Do you prefer the phone?
Well, I have this. So I'm not good with technology, Todd. I'm trying to. I just figured out how to go live on YouTube and Spreaker simultaneously with this phone technology. And the cool thing with this is, like, I can have callers from all around the world, and I can have a bunch of calls at the same time. So, like, if 4 people called right now, like if Sergio and Chris wanted to call in with you, I could patch all you guys in on like this conference call, and we could do it live together. So I want to get that piece added to it, but I'm still figuring it out. This took me long enough to figure this shit out. So my fiance did most of that work because I'm an idiot with this stuff. But I'm working on it, man. That would be the ultimate, to where we could do like side screens and all that kind of stuff. But just one piece at a time, you know. But I was asking you just if you could go through a fight week schedule, and we were talking about, you know, you going to, let's say it's in Dallas, and you going down there on a Thursday. So you'd probably get down there, for the fighter meeting, and then you could cover the weigh-in Friday.
Fighter meetings, yeah.
Yeah.
Fighter meetings Thursday, a production meeting Thursday, sit down with all the guys 30 to 45 minutes, and the next day, the weigh-in show. Sometimes we air that on DAZN where I'll host it. Other times they won't. Then I'm just scouring the internet. If you write an article about, one of the guys fighting, I'll read that. I'll get all that stuff, get all my information onto notes, print them out. Each one is never more than a page, because anything more than that, you can't be flipping through your notes during a fight. I've got everything in little bullet point form right in front of me, so I can just glance down and know it's there. I know where I put his record. I know where I put her date of birth. I know where I put his, birthplace, everything. It's all in the same spot every time, so I can get it, in a moment's glance. And it's tough too, because sometimes I'll call so many fights. If I'm calling 14 fights, there's times where I'll sit down and I can't even name you all the fights on the card, just because there's so many.
Right.
So all the prep I do, I'm not really trying to memorize anything. It really doesn't do me that good to memorize it, as long as I can get to it within a second or 2 seconds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If he gets knocked down, I know I can look down a certain part of my notes and know, hey, this guy's never been knocked down in his career. So, oh, Devin Haney gets knocked down. I look down. That's the first time he's been down as a professional. It's all that stuff right at your fingertips that can help you a lot, at least from my perspective.
Right. Yeah, I've kind of done the same thing. I mean, it helps when you go live, when you have that. I know, like, a lot of times there's, like, that media packet, but it's a fucking book. And you can't flip through that, so you want those bullet points that you can jump to real quick.
And believe it or not, you probably know this too. Sorry to interrupt, but you probably know this too. Sometimes you got to go through those things with a fine-tooth comb, because there's been multiple times where I've relied on them 100% and been wrong about something. Like, I remember it happening in the UFC. Angela Hill, I think it was, something happened to her. She was choked out for the first time, or whatever it was. She was submitted for the first time ever as a pro, blah, 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 blah. And someone goes, hey, you idiot. She was also tapped out at this event 6 years ago. And, man, UFC fans, MMA fans, they're the worst. Boxing fans, bad. WWE fans, bad. UFC fans, the worst.
Really? I figure boxing fans would be the worst. Really? So, because that's one thing I wanted to get to with you is, dude, you've worked in WWE, UFC, boxing, going back to the old school Friday night fights on ESPN. And, of course, now with DAZN, I think you've called some Golden Boy shows. So in kickboxing, you work with Glory. You still work with Glory, right? With kickboxing?
Yes, correct.
So you've been
they're
all
on a
over.
hiatus too. We had a big event scheduled for June, a huge event. Probably had 30,000 people there, but it got postponed because the Netherlands is they canceled the entire soccer season there actually. So they're really shutting things down.
Okay. Yeah, dude. I mean, this thing is just nuts, and it's worldwide. I mean, there was some boxing in Nicaragua this weekend. I don't know if you saw that, but it was just odd.
Oh, I watched it.
Did you watch it?
What
did you think about the production, though, about seeing guys wearing masks at the weigh-in, just how quiet it was? Like, what did you think about all that?
What do they call it? The new real, or the new beginning, or the new whatever. The new norm. I mean, I think that's how it's going to be. I just thought it was funny during the stare down they're wearing the mask, and I'm like, you realize when they're fighting, they're going to be drinking each other's snot and blood and sweat, and does it really? I mean, at that point, I think you should just go ahead and say, well, from this point on, we're trusting each other that we don't have anything, because that's the way it is.
Exactly. That was literally the equivalent of, like, going down on a chick you just met at a party and then putting on a condom before you have sex. Just go with it at that point. You know what I'm saying? Just go with it. But yeah, I thought it was kind of, I don't know, stupid. But it was nice to see boxing.
To me, it was more. Yeah, I think to me it was more they were trying to send a signal that, listen, we're being as cautious as we could possibly be. And apparently there's hardly any cases in Nicaragua. But the more live shows they can do, I don't care if they're Nicaragua or Hungary or Brazil or Jacksonville, Florida, the more of these shows they can put on, the better for everybody, because one promoter sees another promoter put on a show, he's going to feel pressure, not just for himself, but he's going to feel pressure from his fighters coming up to him saying, hey, man, I need to make some money. I'm going to go fight for these guys if you don't give me fights, Yeah.
I think that happened with Bob Arum because you saw Dana White was trying to do an event on an island, right? He was trying to make like a Fight Island thing.
Right.
And that fell through, but I think it got people talking. And now Bob Arum's talking about doing some shows in Florida. Everything I've heard from all the commission people I've talked to and everything is to expect boxing to come back at like the club level, mid-level shows, probably in July.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. Are we going to get big fights by September? Because I'm looking at it, this weekend is Cinco de Mayo weekend. Usually you get a big event around Cinco de Mayo weekend. That's not happening. Last September, Canelo Golovkin, that trilogy couldn't be worked out. So we didn't get a big fight around Mexican Independence Day. It used to be every year, the beginning of May, the middle of September, regardless of how shitty the schedule might have been throughout the rest of the year, you knew on those 2 weekends you were going to get a big event. And now we have it in a freaking year almost. It's driving me nuts. But
yeah,
what have you heard? I mean, you got to be hearing something, right, from the executives at DAZN. Do you speak with any of those guys? Is there meetings, conference calls?
Well, I speak with people who speak with people,
Okay. You know a guy who knows a guy.
I'm not talking to John Skipper every day on Speed Dial or Jamie Horowitz or Josh Santry. But I think just based on economics, if they go to Floyd, if they go to Canelo Alvarez, who they owe, I can't remember off the top of my head, but $20 million for his next fight, are they going to say, we're still going to pay you $20 million to fight in a closed studio where we get zero gate dollars?
Right.
Or are they going to say, Canelo, we'd love to have you fight, but instead of 20, you're going to have to take 15.
Right.
Is Canelo going to take 15? If he doesn't, then they go to the next guy. I think it's going to be interesting. Canelo, I don't know. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it's going to be interesting for fighters like Lomachenko, who can sell tickets, but Bob Arum said in the past that selling tickets has been such a problem for all his fights and all his promotions right now that he doesn't make a ton of money off ticket sales anymore. So does he say to Lomachenko, I could pay you almost the same to fight Teofimo Lopez without a crowd? Would you do it? I think it's going to be those kind of fights we might see as opposed to Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury.
Right. Like the third Wilder Fury fight, you got to have the gate. That's got to go to Vegas. You got to have the gate. It's the same thing with Canelo Golovkin 3. You got to have that gate.
Right.
So I wonder how.
The same thing with
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The same thing with the NFL. Like these owners have all that money, but they can't pay the players their normal salaries if you're taking away their income stream of, let's say they make $400 million a year on tickets and concessions. If they don't make $400 million a year from that stuff, they certainly can't pay the players their full salaries because they don't have the same income. So I think every sport across the board is going to have some serious discussions with their athletes to see if everybody's willing to come on board with these things, to have events with minimal crowds or no crowds at all.
Yeah, that's such a great point, man, because you would think that in these contracts, there has to be something in there like a quote-unquote act of God stipulation. I know that's in insurance contracts. I mean, if you and I get, you know, home insurance, if lightning hits a tree here and it falls down on my house, how does that affect things? I would have to think, I mean, they have lawyers go over these things with a fine-tooth comb, that there's something in there where they could pull back the money. And it's going to be interesting to see in boxing which fighters are willing to take the pay cut and which are willing to sit in their ass and wait to make the big money. Maybe they don't fight this year. There could be some backlash.
And hey, there's nothing. And like you said, it's not like this thing's a certain date. It's not like you can go to Canelo and say, hey, man, listen, starting February 1st, we can have 30,000 people in stadiums again. So let's fight this. You don't know. This coronavirus could come back even stronger next year, they're saying. Who the hell knows? Yeah. So if I'm a fighter, and I'm 20,000 feet above, of course, I'm saying, listen, man, I want to fight. I'm going to take a pay cut to do it because I love the sport. I want to keep doing it. I want to make money for my family, and I don't want to let maybe, who knows, 2 years of my prime of my career go to waste. I mean, $10 million is better than zero. It's not as good as 20, but it's better than zero.
Right. And unlike, other sports, or let's say the NFL, NBA, they have a lot of corporate money invested. They have TV money, huge, huge contracts. There's a little bit of that in boxing, but it's not structured the same way. These guys have to fight or they're not getting paid, bottom line. Is it similar? I imagine it's similar in like WWE, like Glory Kickboxing. It's got to be the same thing, right? Where if those guys aren't fighting, they're not getting paid.
Correct.
Okay.
I mean, you've seen guys who miss weight the night before and the opponent can't fight. He drops out. If it's a smaller show, you just don't get money. I mean, that's the way it is. So, it's like John Smith, Captain John Smith. You don't work, you don't eat. That's the way boxing is, and that's how it's always been. But to me, the good thing about boxing is it's like the cockroach of sports. You can say it's dead, you can say it's done, but it always comes back, and it's always there. And I think we're in a unique position, especially, an average boxing show averages what, 1,500 people maybe? I mean, that's not a ton of money. I think boxing can go to a studio. I know Dana White's trying this basically in Jacksonville at that stadium. Find a studio. You can get corona testing virus or corona testing every day. If you have it, the test, you test everybody that walks in the building, and you just put on fights 3 nights a week. I could see Top Rank or even DAZN doing that, just using American fighters. I mean, I bet that Nicaragua show on ESPN Deportes probably got quadruple the ratings it would have normally gotten, because people like me and you that might have skipped it are like just dying for live boxing. And even gambling, man. We got a lot of gambling addicts across the country that are betting on freaking Russian cricket right now just to have action. I mean, you put Gabe Rosado in there against somebody. I'm betting on it.
Dude, they had axe throwing championships on ESPN yesterday. I shit you not. It might have been ESPN too, but it was axe throwing championships. I mean, they are desperate for content right now. So yeah, and I guarantee you there were some dudes gambling on who was going to throw the axe, better than the other guy. I know right now, gambling, anything related to sports books, and like even stocks, like MGM Resorts, their stock is up. Boyd Gaming, anything gaming related is doing well right now because there's a lot of dudes at home in quarantine looking for shit to gamble on. So yeah, they need to get some fighters in the ring. I wanted to ask you, because again, you've worked wrestling, MMA, kickboxing, boxing. I get asked this all the time, and I really don't know because I'm pretty much just a boxing guy. But for you, you've been around all of it. What are some of the big differences you've seen in terms of fans, demographics, the way the shows are promoted? If you don't want to go too deep into this stuff, I get it. But I'm just curious because I'd love to pick your brain on that.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different aspects, but when it comes to production value, Glory kickboxing is pretty much the same standard every show. UFC, obviously the bigger shows look bigger, but it's the same production standpoint almost every time. Same graphics, same look, same interviews. When it comes to boxing, it's a lot more hodgepodge, depending on how many cameras they've assigned to that event, how many broadcasters they brought in, how many production trucks and people. Every event looks a little bit different for good or bad. So when I was calling a UFC event, I knew it was going to be laid out the exact same way every show. I was going to have to do the exact same reads at the exact same time and that sort of thing. But with boxing, you never know what you're going to get.
That's interesting. Because even with DAZN, I mean, some of the shows you guys do are smaller level shows. And again, with DAZN, one of the cool things is you guys show the whole card. So it doesn't matter if it's a small show, a mid-level show, or a huge show. You guys are showing everything. So is it just a different level of preparation? Because from a production standpoint,
obviously
I'm sorry, go ahead.
The most glaring example was the Kovalev-Canelo fight. I mean, it's time for the main event. The guy's, let's just wait for an hour.
Oh,
let's
brutal.
do this. UFC, man, when these guys are loaded up, they got that time. It's on. I mean, it's a tight run ship. There's no, Dana White has this iron claw. I mean, if Manny Pacquiao decides for 20 minutes he wants to stay there and hit pads in the back, what's going to happen to him? Nothing. But if John Jones starts doing it, Dana White probably personally goes there and slaps him until he comes down to the octagon. So, boxing's a lot more, it's a lot looser. And I would say on a pretty much every single show, UFC cards, kickboxing cards are much deeper. Especially the big shows. I mean, you get the main event and everything else is just kind of, we'll see what we put in there, UFC, kickboxing, the co-main's usually pretty good. I mean, UFC, this next pay-per-view, the co-main is a world title fight for one of their few titles. So boxing cards generally use a lot more prospect, and a lot more of the fights are way more one-sided. That's why you get more upsets, per se, in boxing, is because almost every fight, other than the main and sometimes the co-main, is at least like a 6 or 7 to 1 favorite. UFC, some of the biggest upsets in history of the sport are like 7 to 1 favorite. So UFC cards more competitive, more tightly run ship, more consistent production value. But boxing, obviously, expect the unexpected, and that's kind of what we love about it. You never know what's going to happen on that given night.
What differences do you notice between the fans? I mean, you talked about earlier how, for you, UFC fans have gone after you a little more on social media.
Right.
Do you notice any other differences? I mean, is there anything that sticks out to you, including WWE? I gotta imagine. I've never been to a WWE show, but I've got to imagine those crowds can be pretty raucous, right? I mean,
well, I always use this example. One time I was hosting a pre-pay-per-view show, so kind of like a hype show to get you to buy the pay-per-view, and it was me and Maria Kanellis, who's a diva. We're standing on this podium in the walkway of the arena, in the concourse, surrounded by fans. Everyone's cheering and screaming, and they're like, all right, we're going live, 3, 2, 1, around the world. And right when I'm about to start talking, the crowd starts chanting, fuck you, Grisham, fuck you, Grisham, while I'm talking on the air. So but WWE fans, it's part of a show. Right, and if you're not the good guy or the wrestler that they love, they just basically want to poop all over you. So I kind of get that. UFC fans, it's almost like I feel that they are in a club. And they don't want you got to prove yourself even to become a fan of the sport. Now, I made a ton of mistakes on air. I've done it my whole life. I make mistakes to screw things up. We all do. Some bigger than others. We've all had some whoppers. Whatever. I go out there and do my best. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's bad. But they're just relentless. I mean, they like their certain guys. I mean, John Anik told me basically when he first started there, they about make him cry every night. They were just ruthless on him for 4 or 5 years. Then they get used to him, and then they love him. They used to kill Mike Goldberg like nobody's business. And then the day he left, he became the patron saint. Everyone wanted him back. I think they just like – it's an aggressive sport. The whole sport is surrounded by machismo and energy and testosterone and I want to fight you, I want to kill you. This guy's talking trash. So I get it a little bit. But those fans were way less willing to accept someone who they didn't perceive to be one of their own. Boxing's not quite that bad, and WWE could be that bad, but I was there for 8 years. So they at least got used to me a little bit. I've never been anybody's fan favorite. I think you're my number one fan, Michael, and I appreciate it.
Hey, man, it's all good. That's interesting because I deal with so many detractors on there's videos about me on YouTube calling me all sorts of names and bashing the shit out of me. There's Twitter accounts dedicated to bashing the shit out of me. And it's so interesting. And I always wonder, is it like this in other sports? I guess it is. So very, very interesting.
Well,
so,
just go. I mean, even the NFL draft the other night, you know how hard that thing, Chris Berman said it's the hardest thing ESPN does. Trey Wingo's hosting that thing. Right. No matter who it was hosting it, just type in their name and do search, and you'll find 10% of the people are like, hey, this guy's doing a good job. And the rest of them are killing him. Because what I've found out, even if it's like at a restaurant, the only way you're going to ask for the manager to come over is what? If they fuck something up, right? This waiter's a blah, blah, blah. So that's what Twitter is. No one's going to write on and say, hey, Michael did a good job tonight. But if you mispronounce the guy's name wrong or you got the wrong knockout record of this guy, then they're going to come on and call you an idiot. So you just got to deal with it.
Yeah, and even worse, I mean, I've learned this the hard way, but I like to have a little fun on Twitter. I mean, you follow me, so you see some of the trolling stuff I post, because I just like to have a little fun. And some people misinterpret that shit. Then they come out, the woke police come out with all their different labels and this and that. It's like, man, we can't even joke. We can't even have fun anymore, people. Jesus Christ, relax. But anyway, I can rant about that for an hour. Okay. We talked about the difference between the production, the fans. How about differences between the athletes themselves, between wrestling, MMA, boxing, just from your experience? I mean, you've done everything. I guess the majority of your experience, would you say, is in WWE? Is that where you've had the most experience? Or is it pretty even?
By now it's about even. I mean, they all kind of blur into one. I mean, overall, I'd probably call more. I mean, I've done probably 45 kickboxing shows at 15 shows a night. I've called probably 1,000 wrestling matches. I don't know how many boxing matches. So it's all the same. To me, it's just competition. It's just two people. Who wants it more? Who's more skilled? I mean, it's the same story pretty much across the board. And I would say the athletes are almost the same. I mean, it's you versus the world in there. It's not a team sport. It's one-on-one, mano a mano. So everyone has their own, call it confidence, cockiness, abrasiveness. Some people are more humble. You get different characters in the game, but they all love the sport, and 90% of them are doing it just because they love it, not because they're going to become rich and famous.
Gotcha.
Especially in boxing. I think, UFC guys, you join the UFC, you win 3 fights in a row, you might be fighting for a world title. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how that sport works. In boxing, I mean, you got to, not only do you have to have a great record, you got to be attractive. You got to be fan friendly. You got to draw good numbers. You have to sell tickets. That's how you grow in boxing for the most part. It's not just skill alone. You get signed by the UFC, you don't have to speak. If you start knocking people out, Stipe Miocic, he's one of the worst guys on mic ever, but he's the heavyweight champion. In boxing, he may never get a shot. Look at Dillian White. He's been WBC's number one contender for what? 700 days or something crazy. Yeah. It's a lot more politics in boxing, that's for sure.
Yeah, boxing's just so much more global. I mean, that's one thing I always tell people. UFC, it's still relatively new. I mean, boxing's been around literally for centuries. And if you've come up through the amateurs, you've fought against dudes from every corner of the earth. I mean, nowadays you're fighting against guys from Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Of course, the Cubans, the Russians, the UK, all over. And, that's one thing, so you really, really have to excel at a very high level. And then, like you said, you have to be marketable. You have to be good looking. You have to be good on the mic. I mean, a guy like Terrence Crawford is such a great fighter, but he's not as good on the mic as some of these other guys who are probably making better money already. You know what I'm saying? So, anyway, man, I can't thank you enough, Todd, for coming on the show, man.
No, sure. For sure. Anytime, Michael. Once you get that video part figured out, let me know.
Absolutely, man. We'll do it. It'll be fun. We'll have some drinks, and maybe we'll do a drinking game on the show or something. That'll be fun.
I'm all in, brother.
All right, man. Well, stay warm up there in Connecticut with the kids, and hopefully this quarantine shit's over soon. And, yeah, man, let's have you back on the show.
Would love to do it. Thanks, Michael.
All right, bro. Have a good one, man. There he goes, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Todd Grisham. I didn't want to keep him too much longer. I told him it'd be 20 minutes. We kept him a little bit longer tonight, but we're having a good discussion. I hope you guys enjoyed that. So go ahead and get on the phones now. I see a couple of you guys have been waiting on hold, so I wanted to jump to some of these calls. But I think Todd's awesome, man. I just think he does a great job. He seems like a cool dude. Let's jump to the phones here. 773, you're on the neutral corner. Go.
What's up? Just a quick point that I wanted to make. When you're talking about Devin Haney's situation earlier with the belts, and a lot of the UFC guys, they say as long as there's a sanctioning body that holds onto the belts and they're there for the fighters, they're not there to make money and this and that. It's there for the integrity of the sport and this and that, and it'll help us out. But as we see, they're corrupt as it gets. They are doing backdoor deals and this and that. So I think that Devin Haney situation is a prime example. It's like he's a really young prospect who has the potential to be a big name, so they pretty much just gave him a belt. Didn't beat anybody in the top 10. And I think some of the UFC fighters are a little bit naive when it comes to that. I think when it comes to the money situation, giving belts away, that helps them. But just these sanctioning bodies that have the belts, they're corrupt as it gets. And it's just they give away belts in boxing, it seems like. And it's real confusing the way they do it and how they pick their challenger. Oh, this guy's a mandatory challenger, but we're going to promote him to franchise champion and this and that. It's just so confusing and so much politics involved, like Todd Grisham said. But on the other side, I think they have a chance to make more money. So it's a give and take.
And
but I'll leave it at that when they want to get.
No, I was going to say, great comment, man. Fighters like belts, so that's one thing. Ask Devin Haney if he cares that he got his belt through the email. He don't give a shit. He's got a belt, right? So that's part of it. But then also, the sanctioning organizations are a for-profit business. They're not like a non-for-profit. So they're making money. And you look at the WBC, I think it's very obvious. In the lightweight division, they wanted to invest both in the Lomachenko business and they wanted to invest in the Devin Haney business. And that's how they found a way to get titles out to both sides. And then if they end up doing a title, I guess now for the interim title, Luke Campbell, then they got some Luke Campbell business there. So these sanctioning organizations have figured out ways. When you saw the boxing world kind of split up into different platforms, different promoters, different networks, the sanctioning organizations have found a way to stay tangled on both ends. You know what I mean? So they're smart, but yeah, I'm with you, bro. It's watered down with all these titles.
A lot of loopholes. They know every loophole in the book, and it's what are you gonna do? All right, thanks. I'll let the next guy call in. Take it easy.
All right, man. Have a good one. Let's jump to another call here. Let's see. 353. You are on the neutral corner. Go.
How's it going, Mike? How are you?
Yeah, good. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. Nice listening to Todd. It's a shame I didn't get a chance to ask him a question.
I saw in the chat that you had I saw you had a question for him. I told him earlier, I'm like, man, I'll just keep you for 20 minutes. I ended up keeping the guy for like 40 minutes. So I felt bad. I was like, oh shit. When I saw the time, I kind of rushed him off because he just, anyway, sorry about that. But what do you got?
Well, first things I'd like to say is, you know the way you said the whole thing about calling the show for 6 hours and no one's ever taken him up on the challenge?
You want to challenge him?
I'll take him up on the challenge. Yeah, I'll challenge him. I'll do it. I'll do it for 6 hours. Same show that he's doing. I'll do it. That'll be fun.
Do it, bro. Do it. You got a YouTube channel.
Not saying I'll beat him. I'll beat Jonathan Coachman, who I know is a former colleague of his who's terrible. No offense if he's a friend of his or not. That's my own opinion. When you say Hassanboy Dusmatov is a Russian 42 times and you comment more on Sinisa Estrada's career during a fight, you need to start doing a little bit more research.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Put it like that. Yeah, I'm sure you've seen that Hassanboy's debut. The commentary was terrible.
Yeah.
To be honest. But, so, right, since Todd's not on, I have a question for you, Mike, right?
Right.
Simple enough question. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. When it comes to calling a fight, because I'm sure that you've called fights on YouTube. I'm sure you've called a few total. What do you think is the biggest challenge for you in terms of keeping your emotions intact when you feel things have gone awry at the end of a fight? Because there's professionalism versus being I suppose the best way of saying this is a company guy. So what's the best way of keeping those two things intact without at risk of possibly losing your damn job? Because that's what I wanted to ask them, man.
That would have been a great question, man. Shit. Yeah, I mean, fortunately for me, none of the fights I've called live or scored, I've done some press row scoring, none of them have been controversial. They've all been pretty easy to score, pretty easy to call. And, I saw things kind of happening. I do have a little bit of a boxing background, so, I can see things happening in the first couple rounds that I know are probably going to come into play down the line, and I was correct. So I kind of threw in some things into the commentary that ended up coming to fruition. So it's been all good so far. I haven't had an instance where I've called a fight or scored a fight where it was bullshit, except for on my channel or something, which then I can go off a little bit more. That's different. But that would be a great question for Todd. I think I have had instances, though, of course, where I've been ringside, press row, and I've seen all kinds of unprofessional shit. I mean, just terrible things, just amateur hour bullshit. And it's difficult to bite my tongue. It's difficult not to say something. Like, I've seen guys literally standing up and cheering for a fighter, a member of press row. I remember specifically at the first Kovalev-Ward fight, there were members of the LTBC, not surprisingly, who were literally standing up saying, come on, Dre, use the jab. Come on, man. Standing up. There was one in particular, I won't mention them by name, but I was like, dude, sit the fuck down. And when I said that, a few people started clapping and laughing. So, yeah, you do see stuff like that. But, fortunately for me, it hasn't happened with the cameras on, or anything like that. But I would just imagine at that point, bro, you just, just keep it, go back kind of to your training and your practice, and just, that's the thing. Every episode of this podcast I do, in a sense, or every episode of your show that you do on your channel, it's practice for those moments, because I get people asking me dude, how can you just get in front of a camera with the lights and everyone and just roll and just talk and just go and not stutter and not fuck up or not worry about it? And I'm like, because every week I'm in my house doing a podcast.
Practice makes perfect.
Yeah, I fuck up here all the time so that in those moments I can try to keep my composure a little bit better, That's all it is.
All right, and last question before I leave. Real easy one. You've been ringside, so you've been in press row, you've been at weigh-ins, right? Have you ever seen, in your opinion, a weight scale be fixed?
Yes.
I'm not asking for which weight scale. Actually, I am. Which weight scale was fixed, Mike? Tell us. We want to know.
I could tell you there was a situation for a fight last year involving someone who has a world title right now that I know did not meet the rehydration clause. that was set by the sanctioning organization they fight for, the title that they hold. I know they didn't make it. I saw it.
It was an IBF champion.
It was not an IBF champion. I can't give you too many hints because you'll figure out who I'm talking about. But I saw it happen, and I was told by commission officials what happened, and I know.
Was this Canelo Kovalev?
No.
Damn it!
I'm not going to give you too many hints, but this fighter who currently holds a world title, there was a rehydration thing worked in with because they have a title, and they did not meet the requirements, and everybody looked the other way. So that's a situation where the sanctioning organization allowed that shit to happen. I've seen at the Clarissa Shields, I'll mention that because I think a lot of people know there was some stuff going on with the scale there with one of her fights. I've seen that stuff go on. Yes.
Okay. All right. Appreciate it, Mike. Have a good one. Thanks.
All right. You too, brother. All right. Let's. We got a couple more here. We got one more call from 818. You're on the neutral corner. Go.
Hello?
Hey, what's up?
Hey, how's it going, Mr. Montero? Can you hear me clearly?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, well, I just want to say that I've been a listener since the Undisputed Channel days, say maybe mid-2015.
Awesome.
So I've been a fan since then, and I enjoy your work. I wanted to talk about the heavyweights, if you don't mind, because you did a video a couple of days ago on the heavyweights that I enjoyed a lot, where you listed the heavyweights from this past century, right? Or the past 30 years?
Yes.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. So if you don't mind, I have two questions regarding heavyweights, and then you could just take off from there and I'll hang up.
Okay.
One is, what is the fight of the 21st century, the heavyweight fight of the 21st century? Is it Lennox and Vitali? Is it Tyson and Lennox, Vladimir and Joshua, the two Wilder and Fury fights? So that's the first question. Do you want to answer that first, or should I just ask the second one and then
I can
take off?
Yeah, I mean, of course, these things all come down to preference, but I think that for me, some people thought the fight was overrated, but for me, Joshua Klitschko was the best heavyweight championship fight since the Bo Holyfield fights. And some people would prefer Lennox Lewis's fight against Vitali. The difference with that fight is it got stopped due to an injury. So we kind of got this ending that felt like right when things were about to get really, really good, the fight ended.
Yeah.
And with Vlad and AJ, it was kind of a passing of the torch moment, right? The last great heavyweight. And he had lost to Fury a couple years prior, but it still felt like, okay, I'm passing off the baton to the new generation. And it was in front of 100,000 people at Wembley. I mean, the atmosphere was insane. Both men were hurt. Both men were down. But in the end, the way it's supposed to work is the young fighter is supposed to beat the old fighter. The new generation is supposed to take out the old generation, right? And all that script played out, and it built up AJ. And, everything happened with Ruiz last year, but in that moment, I mean, that was such a good fight, and you had back and forth. For me, that was the best fight of the best heavyweight, legitimate championship fight of the 21st century.
Cool. And the next following question regarding the heavyweight division is, whenever boxing does resume, which heavyweight fight do you look forward to most? Is it Pulev and Joshua, White Povetkin, Usyk Chisora, or what was the other one? I remember there was one more. The rematch, Fury.
Yeah, the third fight between Wilder and Fury. I mean, in terms of spectacle and importance for the division, I think that third fight between Fury and Wilder. I want to see, can Wilder come back from that dominant loss, that really, really destructive loss, and be competitive with Fury? Because I think that would be huge if he could just be competitive. For Fury, can he keep it up? Can he do what he did the last fight and repeat that performance, or even improve further if he can get even better? So I'm interested in that. But in terms of just matchup, like wild card matchup, I think that Povetkin White fight, that's going to be fun, bro. That's going to be really fun. So, yeah.
Cool. Well, I appreciate it, Michael, and stay safe to you and to your wife and your brother.
Thanks a lot, man. You too, bro. And thank you for supporting the show, man. I appreciate it.
No problem. Take care.
All right, you too. All right, let's. We got another call here. 956. 956. You're on the neutral corner.
Hey, what's up, Mike? It's Daddy, man, from Laredo, Texas.
What's up?
Hey, man, I got a question, man. So what do you think? Do you really think the Canelo and Golovkin fight is really going to happen in Jerry World, man, in Cowboy Stadium?
I wish it would, but I don't think so.
And do you think it would sell?
I think it would sell. I think they could sell 90, 100,000 tickets there if they priced them correctly. Here's the only way that fight goes to Jerry World, bro, is if the MGM resorts stay closed for the remainder of the year. If they end up now, I've heard things that, apparently there was an interview with Jonathan Banks said Golovkin doesn't want the third Canelo fight now. I don't know if I believe all that. We'll see how it plays out. But let's just say they can make that fight for this September. I don't know if it can happen, but if it can happen, 99% it's going to Vegas because, again, they need that live gate. They need the ticket sales so that they could pay the fighters because those two guys, they're going to make shit. Between the two of them, they're probably going to make $60 million or something for that fight. So you've got to have the money, and a big part of that's the gate. You need $20 million that only a Vegas gate can do to pay those salaries. However, if the MGM resorts are still closed, which they are right now, then they'll start looking for stadiums. And then, perhaps it could go to Dallas where, you're not going to make as much money, but you could get more fans in there and still do a pretty damn big gate. But I got to say, bro, if that fight happens, 99% chance it's going to Vegas, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, the governor just reopened Texas. So we'll probably end up getting some fights here in Texas. So, I mean, do you think it's going to sell more than Mikey and Errol Spence? Because, I mean, they did have a big crowd, but I don't know how bigger it would be.
Yeah, so I was there for that one. Spence and Garcia, I think that was like 45, maybe 50,000, something like that. That was a great crowd for that fight, man. Great atmosphere. I just think the star power with Canelo. Remember, Canelo's fought in Houston. He's fought at AT&T Stadium before, in Dallas, or I should say Arlington. So
and San Antonio.
I was going to say, San Antonio too. So he's fought there a few times. He's built a brand there. I think that he could fight anybody. When he fought Liam Smith, he did a huge crowd. I think it had to be over 50,000. So if he fights Golovkin there, dude, that's going to be, again, it's all about the way they price the tickets. But there's no reason a fight between those two in Jerry World couldn't do 80,000 pretty easily.
Yeah, because Canelo, he does have a lot of love here in Texas, and he does have a lot of hate too.
Yeah, both love and hate sell. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes hate sells more than love. So, I mean, if Canelo, every time he's fought in Texas, he's done a big crowd. And he's had, if you think about his fights there, he's always had really impressive wins because he destroyed James Kirkland. That was in Houston, I believe. He destroyed Liam Smith in Arlington. Who did he fight in San Antonio?
He fought Trout.
Oh, no. Trout. Was it Trout? Okay. So that was a close fight. That was a real close fight. But that was a young Canelo still, right? He was still kind of a contender. Yeah. I know he had titles and shit, but whatever. He was still a contender. Nowhere near the guy he is now.
I believe that was after the Mayweather fight, correct?
No, that was before. That was... Yeah, because literally that was the only guy he fought before that Mayweather fight that, he wasn't ready for Floyd. Yeah. This version of Canelo, I think, could beat Floyd. I really, really do. I know people think I'm crazy when I say that, but just style-wise, I think, and now, he's just fully grown. I think he'd give Floyd a lot of problems. Yeah. But, bro. Yeah. Texas, man, you guys great fight fans down there. I love going to fights there in Texas. I've always had a good time. And you guys are definitely, I think, becoming a new boxing, like the hot market. You know what I'm saying? I think that there's a lot of good fighters coming out of that area.
Yep, you're right about that. When are you gonna get Vince Cummings or Kenny Keith on your show, man? Those guys are funny as well.
Oh, Vincent. Oh, yeah, dude, I have him back on. I had him on, I don't know, maybe a month ago or something. Well, actually, we did a video talking about the heavyweights. But, yeah, maybe I'll have him on TNC, actually, one of these times. I think that'll be fun. Those guys are great, man.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're funny, but they do know what they're talking about as well. So they don't just talk out of their ass, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you know, the thing is, like, they've gotten things wrong and they'll admit it just like everybody else. But, you know, when they actually break down a fight and they give their prediction, like, I'm actually, like, curious to listen to it. And I'll tell you right now, there's a lot of boxing writers who can't fucking score a fight or break down a fight to save their life. And Kenny and Vince are two guys, when they give their opinion about a fight, I take it in. I don't always agree. But I'm like, okay, yeah. They see things that boxing writers should see, but don't always see.
Yeah, well, that was my call, man. You have a good show. I always listen to you whenever I can. Usually I always hear your podcast while I'm at work on my forklift, you know.
Awesome. Dude, I grew up riding forklifts, man. My dad works in the forklift industry. So when I was a kid, I was driving forklifts. That shit's fun. Anyway.
Yeah, I love it, but, you know, it gets to you, too, you know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, after a while, you just want to get the hell off that thing. But, yeah, I was helping somebody once on a forklift, and I smashed it into a wall and destroyed a wall once. So maybe I wasn't the best driver.
That powerful.
Yeah, dude, it just the forks went smashed right through a freaking wall. I was lifting up a guy to put up some light bulbs on the ceiling, and I turned around and boom! I just took out like a whole side of an office. So that wasn't good. But other than that, I'm okay on the forklift. Thanks for watching the show, man. I've been doing it
for a couple of years.
Oh, what's that?
Yeah, man, I love the show, man. Yes, sir.
All right, bro.
No, I love the show, man.
All right, man. Have a good one.
You too, boss.
Bye. All right, guys, I think that's it for today. Man, what a good show. What a good show. Been going for almost an hour and a half. That was a hell of a lot of fun. Let's get that outro music playing. Oh, there it is. All right, guys. So, man, next week, the show, it'll be May. We're already 4 months through the year. 2020 has sucked. The first 2 months were awesome. The last 2 months have sucked. It can only get better from here, right? Please don't tell me it's going to get worse. I think it's going to get better. I think the worst is behind us. Anyway, as always, guys, thank you for tuning in and watching and listening. And please remember to subscribe on the YouTube and get the word out, because the corporate masses there at Google are killing me. They're trying to hold me down and prevent me from getting 10,000 subs. I need your help to get there, guys. That's the goal. All right, so have a good one. Stay safe. I'll see you at the fights.